"You killed my baby!" The words echoed through Judge Sarah Mitchell's chambers as she stared at the crumpled birth certificate that would shatter everything she believed about the past 12 years. Sarah's hands trembled as she reviewed the case file before her. Marcus Taylor, age 12, stood in her courtroom, his small frame drowning in a borrowed suit, eyes that mirrored her own staring straight through her soul. 7 foster homes in 12 years had taught him to stay quiet, to bury his memories deep, but he couldn't forget the lullaby, the same one Sarah had sung every night during her pregnancy before they told her son was stillborn. The prestigious Jefferson Memorial Hospital had seemed perfect for her high-risk pregnancy. As a newly appointed judge, Sarah had the best care money could buy. But on that stormy night in April, everything went wrong. Emergency C-section, they said. Complications. Then the words that haunted her for 12 years. "I'm sorry, Judge Mitchell, your son didn't survive." She never saw the body. They rushed her to sign papers while she was still groggy from anesthesia. Her husband James couldn't bear their loss, drowning his grief in work until a car crash took him 2 years later. Sarah buried herself in family court cases, becoming known as the judge who fought hardest for children's rights, never knowing she was fighting for her own flesh and blood. Now Marcus stood before her, a case of foster placement gone wrong. His current foster parents, the Richardsons, wanted to return him, said he was too difficult, too distant, claimed he spent nights crying over an old photograph he refused to show anyone. "Your Honor," David Richardson adjusted his Rolex watch, designer suit crisp in the morning light. "We've done everything possible. Private school, therapy, his own room. But the boy," he hesitated. "He's disturbed, talks about memories that can't be real, claims he remembers his mother's heartbeat, a song she used to sing." Sarah's chest tightened. The lullaby, her mother's lullaby, passed down through generations. Marcus's social worker, Angela Washington, touched his shoulder gently. "Marcus hasn't spoken in weeks, Your Honor, the trauma specialist believes." "You used to sing about angels." Marcus's voice, clear and certain, cut through the courtroom like a blade. His eyes locked with Sarah's. "Every night before I was born, angels watching over me." The courtroom fell silent. Sarah gripped her bench, memories crashing over her. The pregnancy journal she'd kept, writing about singing that exact lullaby. The tiny music box she'd bought, playing "Angels Watching Over Me" for her unborn son. "That's enough," David Richardson stood. "You see how he invents these stories? It's not healthy." But Marcus was pulling something from his pocket, a photograph worn and creased from years of handling. He walked forward, small steps carrying the weight of 12 years of separation, and placed it on Sarah's bench. The image showed a younger Sarah in a hospital garden, hand resting on her pregnant belly, face glowing with joy. On the back, in faded ink, "They'll tell you I'm gone. Don't believe them. Find me." Sarah's world tilted. The handwriting was her nurse's, Janet Cooper, who had disappeared the day after Sarah's C-section, the same day they claimed her son had died. "Marcus," her voice shook, "where did you get this?" "Miss Janet gave it to me in my 3rd foster home. Said I needed to remember the truth. They fired her the next day." As Sarah stared at the boy before her, his eyes the exact shade of amber as her father's, the way his chin tilted defiantly, just like James, memories of hospital papers signed in a drugged haze swam back. The death certificate she never saw clearly, the funeral home that handled everything so conveniently. Her judicial mind raced. Jefferson Memorial Hospital, known for its prestigious infant care unit, its wealthy clients, its spotless reputation. How many other mothers had they told their babies were dead? How many other children had been fed into the foster system, their true identities erased? Angela Washington was already pulling out her phone, face grim with realization. "Your Honor, I'm calling the FBI. This isn't just about Marcus." The Richardsons were edging toward the door, but Sarah's voice, steel wrapped in silk, stopped them. "Court officers, detain Mr. and Mrs. Richardson for questioning. Nobody leaves this room." She looked at Marcus, her son, seeing 12 years of loss, of pain, of searching, but also seeing strength, determination, and a truth that couldn't be buried. "We have a lot to talk about," she said softly, her heart thundering with rage and love. "And some people are going to pay dearly for what they've done." Outside her courtroom, storm clouds gathered over the city, but inside, a different kind of storm was brewing. one that would expose decades of corruption, tear open a nationwide conspiracy of stolen babies, and bring down an empire that had turned infant trafficking into a brutal art. Because behind every forged death certificate was a mother who never stopped searching, and behind every stolen child was a truth waiting to be found. The safe house felt like a fortress of secrets. Sarah watched Marcus sleep on the living room couch, his small hand still clutching the photograph that had changed everything. 12 years of judicial composure crumbled as she noticed how his nose scrunched in sleep, exactly like her father's had. Judge Mitchell, FBI agent Lisa Torres's voice was gentle but urgent. "We found Janet Cooper." Sarah's heart jumped. "Where?" "Dead. Car accident 3 years ago. Too convenient to be coincidence." Agent Torres spread photos across the kitchen table, but she left something behind, a storage unit in her sister's name. "We found this." She pushed forward a thick manila envelope. Inside were dozens of photographs. Newborns in Jefferson Memorial's nursery, each with detailed notes on the back. Dates, names, prices. They were selling babies to the highest bidders, Agent Torres explained. Wealthy couples, politicians, anyone willing to pay 6 figures for a perfect infant. When a baby matched their criteria, they told the mother her child died. Sarah's voice cracked. "How many?" "We've identified 68 cases so far, just at Jefferson Memorial, but the network, it's bigger, much bigger." A small sound made them both turn. Marcus stood in the doorway, shadows under his eyes. "I remember the nursery," he whispered. "The lights were always blue, and there was a nurse. She used to sing to us when she thought no one was watching." Sarah opened her arms. After a moment's hesitation, Marcus came to her. She breathed in his scent, feeling his heart beat against hers. "Tell us everything you remember, sweetheart. Every detail helps." His words came slowly at first, then faster. "The Richardsons weren't my first family. There were others, rich people who wanted a perfect son, but I wasn't perfect enough. I kept remembering things they said I shouldn't know, like your song and your voice." Agent Torres typed rapidly on her laptop. "The Richardsons are talking. They were paid to move difficult children through the foster system, kids who started asking questions, remembering their real parents. They'd claim behavioral issues, get the kids relocated before anyone could investigate." Sarah's judicial mind raced through implications. "The whole system's compromised. Foster care agencies, adoption attorneys, judges." She stopped cold. "My God, Judge Franklin, your mentor." Agent Torres looked up sharply. "He pushed for my C-section, said it was an emergency. He's been handling adoptions for Jefferson Memorial's premium clients for 20 years. Marcus's grip tightened on her hand. "He visited the Richardsons last week, said things were getting complicated, that I needed to disappear." Sarah's blood turned to ice. Outside, rain began to fall, drumming against the safe house windows. Agent Torres's phone buzzed. Another text from the FBI task force. "Judge Franklin's gone," she reported grimly. "Private plane took off an hour ago, but we found something in his office safe. Birth certificates, death certificates, all forgeries. And this." She slid a document across the table. Sarah recognized her own signature, obviously forged, on adoption papers dated 12 years ago. Next to it was a bank statement showing $1 million transfer from an offshore account. "They sold my baby," she whispered, rage building in her chest. "They stole him, sold him, then laundered him through the foster system when he started remembering." "The Richardsons weren't just foster parents," Agent Torres added. "They were cleanup crew. When children showed signs of remembering their real parents, they'd be moved to new homes, given new identities. The trauma of constant relocation usually buried the memories. But I didn't forget." Marcus's voice was stronger now. "Miss Janet said I was special, that I had to keep remembering, keep the photograph safe. She said the truth would find its way home." Sarah pulled him closer, her heart aching for all he'd endured. "Agent Torres, how many other children are out there? How many other mothers were told their babies died? We're running DNA tests, cross-referencing hospital records. But Sarah," Lisa hesitated, "these people, they're powerful. They'll do anything to keep this quiet. You and Marcus need to disappear until we can." A crash downstairs cut her off. Heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. Agent Torres drew her weapon as Sarah pulled Marcus behind her. "Back door," Lisa commanded. "Now, my team's 3 minutes out." But as they turned to run, a familiar voice froze Sarah in her tracks. "Hello, Sarah." Judge Franklin stood in the doorway, his distinguished gray hair wet from the rain. "I see you found what you lost. Pity you won't live to tell anyone about it." The storm raged outside as Sarah faced the man who had orchestrated her son's theft. Behind her, Marcus gripped her hand, and in that touch, she found strength she never knew she had. Because this time, she wasn't just a grieving mother or a powerless victim. She was a judge who had spent 12 years fighting for children's rights. And she finally understood why. Thunder cracked as Judge Franklin raised a gun, but Sarah Mitchell stood her ground. She had lost her son once to these people. Never again. The gunshot shattered the safe house window, but Judge Franklin's aim was off. In the split second before he could fire again, Agent Torres tackled him from behind. The gun skittered across the floor as Sarah shielded Marcus with her body. "Mom!" The word burst from Marcus's lips for the first time. Raw and desperate, the sound gave Sarah strength she didn't know she possessed. FBI agents swarmed the house, securing Judge Franklin as Agent Torres retrieved his weapon. But Sarah barely noticed. That one word, "Mom," echoed in her heart, filling 12 years of empty spaces. DNA results just came in, Agent Torres announced hours later at FBI headquarters. "It's a match. 99.9% probability." She pushed forward another file. "But there's more. We found a hidden server at Jefferson Memorial. The pictures, the records." "Sarah, this goes beyond anything we imagined." The images on the screen made Sarah's blood boil. Nurseries and hospitals across the country, detailed profiles of pregnant mothers categorized by education, appearance, and genetic background. Wealthy buyers selecting babies like luxury goods. "They called it Project Cherub," Agent Torres explained. "Premium adoption services for elite clients. They targeted educated, successful mothers, women who'd make ideal surrogates, except they never agreed to give up their babies." Marcus sat close to Sarah, their shoulders touching. "The blue lights in the nursery," he said softly. "They were cameras, recording everything. Miss Janet showed me the tapes before they killed her," Sarah finished grimly. She wasn't just documenting their crimes, she was building a case. "Found something else," a young FBI analyst called from his computer. "Judge Franklin's offshore accounts connect to a private school in Switzerland. Look at the student records." Sarah's heart stopped. Photos filled the screen. Children who'd been adopted through Jefferson Memorial, sent abroad when they started asking questions. Children like Marcus who remembered too much. "They're still there," Marcus whispered. "Other kids like me, waiting to be found." Sarah squeezed his hand. "And we're going to find them. Every single one." The investigation exploded across headlines. FBI raids hit hospitals in 12 states. Corrupt judges, doctors, and social workers were led away in handcuffs. But the real stories were the reunions. Mothers discovering their babies hadn't died. Children finding their way home. Angela Washington, Marcus's former social worker, created a special unit to handle the cases. 7 more DNA matches confirmed today, she reported, her eyes bright with tears. One mother was told her twins died 20 years ago. They've been living 10 miles from her all this time. But the fight was far from over. The wealthy and powerful fought back. Mysterious accidents befell key witnesses. Evidence disappeared. Judge Franklin was found dead in his cell before he could name names. "They're scared," Agent Torres observed, watching news coverage of another hospital raid. "The whole network's unraveling. But these people, they'd rather kill than face justice." Sarah nodded grimly. She'd spent the past month in safe houses with Marcus, working with the FBI task force while building an airtight case. Every night, she held her son close, humming their lullaby, making up for 12 years of lost bedtime songs. Marcus was changing too. The quiet, withdrawn boy was finding his voice. He worked with child psychologists, helping other recovered children process their trauma. His testimony would be crucial in the upcoming trials. "Dr. Reynolds is going to prison," he announced one evening, showing Sarah a newspaper. The architect of Project Cherub, finally caught trying to flee the country. They found his records, 25 years of stealing babies. Sarah studied her son's face, stronger now, healing. "Are you ready to tell your story in court? It won't be easy." Marcus straightened, his eyes reflecting her own determination. Those other kids, they need to know it's okay to remember, that the truth wants to be found. A knock at the door made them both turn. Agent Torres entered, her face alight with excitement. "We found them, the Swiss school. 37 children, all stolen through Project Cherub. The raids begin at dawn." Sarah felt tears slip down her cheeks as Marcus hugged her tight. More families would be reunited. More truth would come to light. But then Agent Torres's phone buzzed. Her face darkened as she read the message. "Sarah, they found another nursery, hidden level beneath Jefferson Memorial. It's still active, and the records..." She swallowed hard. "There are hundreds more children out there. Hundreds of mothers who don't know their babies are alive." Marcus gripped Sarah's hand. "Then we keep fighting, until every last one comes home." Sarah looked at her son, her miracle, and knew he was right. The storm wasn't over, but now they faced it together, armed with truth that would no longer stay buried. Because behind every forged death certificate was a mother's love that never died. Behind every stolen child was a memory that couldn't be erased. And together, they would tear down the walls of lies until every lost child found their way home. 1 year later, Sarah stood before Congress, Marcus by her side. The hearing room was packed with families. Hundreds of mothers and children reunited through what the media now called the Mitchell case. "My son was stolen from me," she testified, her voice carrying years of pain and triumph. "Sold for profit by people who swore to protect children, but he found his way home. And now, we fight for every child still searching." The investigation had exposed an empire of corruption, 42 hospitals, hundreds of doctors and officials, thousands of babies sold to wealthy families over 3 decades. But the numbers couldn't capture the human cost. "I remember every child from that nursery," Marcus told the silent chamber. At 13, his quiet strength moved even hardened politicians to tears. Some were too young to remember their mothers, but their mothers never forgot them. The evidence was staggering. Janet Cooper's meticulous records recovered security footage, offshore accounts holding billions in blood money. Project Cherub had tentacles in every state, reaching into the highest levels of power. But the most powerful testimony came from the reunions. Emily Chen told her twins died at birth, found them teaching at the same university where she worked. James Peterson discovered his daughter wasn't stillborn. She'd been living 3 blocks away, wondering why she looked nothing like her parents. Sarah's organization, Lost Angels Found, had helped reunite over 400 families. DNA testing continued to match children with parents who'd been told they died. Each reunion sparked new investigations, exposing more corrupt hospitals, more stolen babies. The Swiss school raids freed dozens of children, leading to international investigations. Similar operations were uncovered in 6 countries. The trafficking network was global, but it was crumbling. "Your son's courage changed everything," Agent Torres told Sarah during a break in the hearings. His testimony convinced other children to speak up. The whole conspiracy unraveled because one boy refused to forget his mother's lullaby. Marcus, overhearing, squeezed Sarah's hand. They'd developed a language of small touches, making up for 12 years of lost connection. Every gesture said what words couldn't. "I'm here. I remember. I love you." Back home, Sarah's house had become a sanctuary for recovering families. The living room wall displayed photos of reunions, tears, hugs, healing. Marcus helped new children adjust, showing them it was safe to remember, safe to trust again. "Sometimes I dream about the blue lights," he told a recently recovered girl named Lucy. "But then I hear Mom singing our song, and I know I'm home." Sarah watched from the doorway, her heart full. The nightmares still came sometimes. The rage at what they'd endured still burned. But every reunion was a victory. Every family restored was justice served. The congressional hearings led to the Lost Angels Act, providing resources to investigate suspicious infant deaths and support reunited families. Hospitals faced strict new protocols. Corrupt officials went to prison. But most importantly, people started questioning. Mothers who'd been told their babies died demanded answers. Children who'd always felt something was wrong began searching. Truth was breaking through decades of lies. On Marcus's 14th birthday, they visited Janet Cooper's grave. Sarah placed flowers while Marcus set a framed photo against the headstone, the same one that had helped him find his way home. "She saved more than just me," he said softly. "She saved every child who came after, every family that got put back together." Sarah hugged him close, breathing in the scent of her son's hair. "And we'll keep fighting until the last lost angel finds their way home." That evening, they hosted another reunion. A mother from Texas told her daughter died 15 years ago, meeting the girl who'd been sold to a family in Oregon. As they watched the tearful embrace, Marcus turned to Sarah. "Mom," he said, his voice strong with conviction, "we're not just finding lost children, we're finding lost justice." Sarah looked at her son, no longer the scared boy from that courtroom, but a warrior for truth. Every child reunited with their family was a blow against corruption. Every exposed lie brought them closer to a world where babies couldn't be bought and sold. The lullaby that had guided Marcus home now echoed in living rooms across the country as other mothers sang to children they'd thought were lost forever. Because love leaves traces that no amount of money can erase. Truth finds ways to surface. And sometimes justice comes in the form of a child who refuses to forget. If this story touched your heart, hit subscribe to join our fight for justice. Leave a comment telling us what you'd fight for, what truth you'd never let die. Because somewhere out there, another lost angel is waiting to be found. And together, we can light the way home. Remember, every share of this video could help another family reconnect. Every voice raised makes the truth harder to bury. The fight isn't over, it's just beginning. And hope is the most powerful weapon we have.